अभयहरां संबिभ्रतीं शाश्वतीं मुक्ताहारलसत्पयोधरनतां नेत्रत्रयोद्भासिनीं वन्देऽहं सुरपूजितां हरवधूं रक्तारविन्दस्थिताम्. Sabhasamudram Shirasa Namami to Soma Sundareshwara and Meenakshi who are sitting here in the Sabha in the form of all of you. It's such a privilege on a day as special as today, because while the Kalyanam happens there in Madurai, today we will engage with a Bhava Kalyanam of Meenakshi and Sundareshwara. And just a disclaimer, there's quite a while before we get to their Kalyanam. So for all of you who are in anticipatory wait, you can continue that anticipation for some time. Because if you look at most of the Kalyana Kathas that we have across Itihasas and Puranas, most of them come with quite a backstory. Rukmini Kalyanam has one, Sita Kalyanam has one, Gauri Kalyanam has one, of course Meenakshi Kalyanam has one. And what is interesting about this is the way that the Kalyanam is not an isolated unit in which we just celebrate the coming together of two individuals or two devatas. But the Kalyanam serves as the culmination of what does that devata represent and what does the coming together of two such identities speak about. Many people have interpreted Kalyanams to be the idea of Jivatma and Paramatma Aikyam. But through this lens and more, we explore how the idea of a devata becomes extremely personal. Because in most of these Kalyana Gathas, if you look at Sita Kalyanam, Radha Kalyanam, Rukmini Kalyanam, any of them, you will see the characters go through ups and downs in their journey. It is not that they just meet each other, they match on shadi.com and the next morning they're getting married. There is a host of trials and tribulations that they go through even if they are devatas. What is amazing about this is how do you understand a devata? How do you go closer to a devata? And Meenakshi Kalyanam is one of the most beautiful stories that explains this. But what is interesting, not just about Meenakshi Kalyanam, is also about the space in which it happens. As all of you know, this happens in Madurai. But Madurai is a melting pot of ideas. We look at Madurai from the context of Soma Sundareshwara and Meenakshi. But the amount of layers, the amount of devatas that are present in Madurai, the ancientness of the Kshetra which preceded the temple that you see today, the space of Madurai, all of this, layer by layer, when you start to unpeel, you realize how much is present in those two words, Meenakshi and Sundareshwara, how much they embody, how much they talk about. So today our attempt will be first to have a Kshetra Darshanam, to understand what is so sacred about this Kshetram. Because as several of you would be familiar, the idea of a Kshetram always is greater than the idea of a Devalayam. A Devalayam comes later, it comes as a reminder for people that this is a sacred spot. But in many a Kshetram, the Devalayam is hardly even visible. I give this example periodically. If you see the Ashtadasha Shakti Pithas, the 18 spots that are sacred, where Sati's body is said to have fallen in different parts, some of those have massive temples. You will see Vindhyavasini has a massive temple, you will see Vishalakshi. It may not be a massive temple, but there is a structure. In the Ashtadasha Shaktipitha Shloka, which starts with Lankayam, Shankari Devi, Kamakshi, Kanchikapuri, it details out the different places. Over there, if you see, one phrase says Gaya Mangalya Gaurika. In Gaya, that is in modern day Bihar, there is the goddess Mangala Gauri. Mangala Gauri's temple is in the middle of a crossroad. This is the height of the idol, this is the covering around it. You will go around it in an auto. That is the Kshetram. So does that mean the Kshetram is not important? Not at all. The Kshetram is extremely important. The idol is serving as a reminder of the ground. So that is the approach with which we also look at a place like Madurai, because there is so much of activity that has happened here prior to Meenakshi and Sundareshwara's Kalyanam, each in a different timeline, each in a different wavelength. And today our attempt is to spend some time there, to enter Madurai and then see the Kalyanam, because that is the krama even if we had to physically go there. So without any worry of you having to deal with that heat, today we will go straight into that idea of what is Madurai. Interestingly, if you look at this Kshetram, its origins are to do with one of the most phenomenal stories that we have in the Brahmanda Purana. This is the story of Lalita's appearance. When Lalita Mahatripura Sundari appears, this story is known to everybody, that she appears from the Chidagni Kunda Sambhuta Devakarya Samudyata. This is what the Sahasranamam says. Prior to that, something very, very interesting happens. This is the point in the story. So we're all familiar with, how many of us are familiar with the story of Shiva burning down Kama? That when Shiva is deep in tapas, when Parvati is serving him, Kama tries to shoot an arrow. At that moment, Shiva burns him down. Interestingly, today is also Ananga Trayodashi or Kama Trayodashi, the day that Kama was recreated. So it's very beautiful to tell a Kalyana Gatha today because this Kalyanam happened also in connection to this. But our story is not beginning on such a happy note. Our story actually begins with Kama Dahanam, that Kama is burnt down. When Kama is burnt down, one of the Shivaganas who is present over there, he takes that heap of ashes. Kama is not, this is not Kama, this is Kama's remnants. He takes that heap of ashes and he makes a small little living figure out of it. His name is Chitragana. He does strange things. So Chitragana. So Chitragana pours life into this. And this being that has come from Kama's ashes, as he grows in size, Brahmadeva happens to be roaming and he happens to be passing. At this point, he sees this creature that Chitrakarma has created, and he looks at it and he says, Chi. Chi in Sanskritam is Bhanda. So this boy picks up this name and he says, I like this name. I'll call myself Bhandasura henceforth. So Bhandasura grows in size and in stature, and that entire katha will become another one altogether. So I'm not going too much into that, but I'm focusing on something very beautiful here. Kama is gone. In Srishti, when there is no Kama, when there is no desire, everybody loses energy. If we have no desire to be here, none of us would be here. If we had no desire to get up, we wouldn't be out of our beds every morning. This is the idea also from where depression stems from, that we lose desire. The loss of Kama is compared in Sanskritam to rasa, because rasa is fluid, or that sense of giving life is contained in the word rasa. If all the devatas find that all their rasa has been lost, so they become ne-rasa, so they become extremely lethargic, they're losing interest in everything. At this point, they're wondering, what do we even do? And they get into a lot of self-pity, wondering, we can't do anything about it, what to do, Kama is gone, Shiva is somewhere, each of them is in their own space wondering what to do. At this point, Shiva appears to them. Shiva does not appear alone to them. Shiva appears with Shakti. Look at the story. Story is that they are not married, but here they are in a live-in relationship. No, the idea is they are eternally together. Now as a Leela, they are going to come together again. But Shiva appears in a specific form to all the devatas present. Shiva here is called as Parashambhu. And Parashambhu has the Trishulam in one hand, and his other hand, his left hand, is holding his Vamabhagam. His Vamabhagam has an Akshamala and a Chinmayi Mudra. So on her right hand she has the Chinmayi Mudra, and on her left hand she has the Akshamala. She doesn't say anything. She just smiles looking at all of them. And Parashambhu speaks, and he tells them that a yajna must be performed. I will perform that yajna. From that yajna kundam, Lalitha will come. After Lalitha comes, she will destroy Bhandasura, and all of you will regain the energy that you have lost. You will re-attain that state of Rasatvam. Now, Parashambhu says this, Parashambhu and Parachiti. This is the name of the Divya Dampatis that appear here. Both of them say this, and they disappear. Para, remember this word para, it's very important for us. As soon as this happens, Lalitha emerges. When Lalitha emerges and she's about to go and wage this war against Bhandasura, what happens? I love the silence when I ask a question. You all know this. Chakrarajaratharudha sarvayudha parishkrita Geya Chakraratharudha Mantrini Parisevita. As soon as she emerges and she has had a Pattabhishekam and she's ready to go and fight Bhandasura, she looks and she says, I'm about to wage a war. I'm a queen. So I'm also going to have a minister and I'm going to have a commander-in-chief. So from the Chakra Raja Ratham, from the Sri Chakram, she creates another Chakram which has 7 enclosures. From that Chakram, that is called as the Geya Chakram. 7 Geya. All kinds of hints are coming here. She creates a goddess who emerges from her, and this goddess looks extremely different from Lalitha. Lalitha is bright and glowing, she's in red color, whereas this goddess is Manikya Veenam Upalalayantim Madalasam Manjula Vakvilasam Mahendra Neela Dyutikomalangim Matanga Kanyam Manasasmarami. The shlokam from the eternal evergreen Shyamala Dandakam, beautifully describes this goddess. It says, Manikya Veenam, with this gem-studded Veena, she emerges. She is the color of a blue lotus. She looks at Lalitha and she says, who am I? And she says, you will be my minister. I will call you as Raja Matangi. I will call you as Shyamala. And this goddess has a parrot. So Lalitha says, I will call you as Shuka Shyamala. Shuka, which is a parrot. So this goddess becomes Mantrini because she is the minister. And of course they win the war against Bhandasura. But another goddess also comes with Lalitha at that time. Who is that? Geya Chakraratharudha Mantrini Parisevita Kiri Chakraratharudha Dandanatha Puraskrita. Dandanatha is none other than Varahi. So Varahi and Shyamala both emerge from Lalitha. Lalitha's chakram has 9 enclosures. It's a Sri Chakram. Shyamala Devi's has 7 enclosures. It is called the Geya Chakram. Varahi Devi's is the Kiri Chakram, which has 5 enclosures. Both these goddesses have come from her. Where did they all come from? If you heard me a few minutes ago, you have the answer. Where did they all come from? They came from the Chidagni Kundam. Before that, they were not there. This is the moment where Puranas make us think about something cyclic. No Purana, the Brahmanda Purana does not say Lalitha was created. The Brahmanda Purana says Lalitha came. Lalita Parameshani Samudvahne Samudbhava. Samudbhava, come, rise. You can only ask somebody to rise when they're already there. This is the goddess who is eternally present in Manidvipam. In Manidvipam, which is beyond the Chaturdasha Lokas, that is where Rajarajeshwari rules. And in that Loka, all the goddesses who came here to help her fight, not just Varahi and Shyamala, a host of other goddesses came. All of them are also in that Loka. And if you go to that Loka, you will see that a mirroring of what happens there, of who lives where, which address, which quarters is assigned to who, the same thing has to happen now on Bhuloka because she fought the war here on Bhuloka. So the war is done. And now we take a parallel. In Manidvipa, in the different enclosures, in the 25 different enclosures that are present in Manidvipa, Rajarajeshwari is in the center point, Chintamani Gruham, that is where she is. Her attendants, that is the 2 predominant attendants, Varahi and Shyamala, both have residences also. Shyamala lives in the Kadamba Vanam, the Kadamba tree. In the midst of an entire forest full of Kadamba trees, there is a house for Shyamala Devi specifically, not one, 32 different houses for Shyamala Devi because there are 32 different forms of Shyamala Devi. So all of them live over there. Varahi also has her own space. But Prastutange, I will focus on Shyamala Devi. So Shyamala Devi, the war is finished. Lalitha has chosen a place for herself to live on Bhulokam. Where is that? That is Kanchipuram. In Kanchipuram, in the Kamakoti Pitham, she says, this is where I will eternally reside. Shyamala and Varahi also ask for their addresses. So she gives them both an address and she says, you go and you settle down there. Where do you think she asks Shyamala to go? Because the topic is Madurai. She asks Shyamala Devi to select a Kadamba Vanam for herself and she says, find a place in Bhulokam where you can see Kadamba Vanam for as long as the eye can make out. And Shyamala says, there it is, in this particular Kshetram. The word Madhura does not come there. Madurai Kshetram does not come there. So she says, go there and settle down. So Shyamala Devi goes there. Varahi Devi also chooses a place for herself. One version tells us that in Tamil Nadu, very close to Srirangam, in Thiruvannaikaval, where Swami is present as Jambukeshwara, Ambal goes there, Varahi goes there and settles down as Varahi. This is, Varahi only becomes Akhilandeshwari. The famous goddess Akhilandeshwari is said to be none other than Varahi. So Lalita in Kanchipuram, Shyamala in this Kadambavanam and Varahi in Thiruvannaikaval. Another version says that Varahi goes to Kashi. If you apply this also, it makes sense. Because in all the 3 places, the goddess earned herself one name, which has become her epithet. So you can see in Kanchipuram, it is Kanchi, Mathura, Kashi. Absolutely. So from that logic, if you look at it, Varahi settling down in Kashi makes sense because the 3 goddesses here spoken about are the 3 that we touched upon. But let's dwell on this Kadambavanam. So Shyamala goes and settles down in this Kadambavanam. Shyamala, who is Shyamala? Shyamala is the goddess of speech. That is why she comes out in a chakram called the Geya Chakram. Geya means speech. The Geya Chakram has, I said it's a chakram of 7 enclosures. 7 is nothing but the Sapta Swaras. The Sangeet Adhishtatra Devata, the one who governs both music and speech, she is called as Shyamala Devi. Shyamala Devi is none other than Saraswati in another form. So Saraswati here, or Shyamala Devi, is the one who is responsible for all speech. If you look at the idea of speech, Sanatana Dharma gives it so much prominence because it does not say that it comes from the voice box. It says that it comes from the Mooladhara Chakram. When speech begins in us as a thought, it is called as para. When we want to say something, para then moves into pashyanti, which is the next stage of expression of speech. Para moves to pashyanti. By this time it has not yet become sound. It is still inside the body. When somebody says something to you and you register and there is a desire to respond, that is called as para. From there you start to think about how to respond. That is called as pashyanti. When it reaches this point, up till from where it is sound, not a voice, not a specific dialect, not a language, just sound, it is called as madhyama. Para, pashyanti, madhyama. And finally, when you express it in a way that somebody else can understand, that is called as vaikhari. So the root of all these 4, human beings are said to be the only beings that have up till vaikhari of expression. Animals have up till madhyama, plants have up till pashyanti. And several inanimate beings have paravak. So the maximum expression of this paravak is vaikhari. Vaikhari goes back to para, the one who is responsible. If I say something to you and you respond, hopefully you will, when you are responding, that source, what is making you respond? That is Shyamala Devi. That is sitting inside you and say, hey, he's talking to you, respond. That force that is making you respond is called Shyamala Devi. That force went and sat down in this Kshetram. Now, in this Kshetram, she is present as Nadam. She is present as sound. That is why if you see, there are so many Nada yogis who are connected to this Kadamba Vanam, because they've just gone there and they have connected to Nadam and they have escaped from Samsara Sagaram. One of the most phenomenal examples for this, you think of Madurai and the goddess who rules there, because she rules speech and Sangeetam. If you use your speech and Sangeetam and direct it to her, she will release you. One such Nada yogi is none other than Muthuswami Dikshitar. On the eve of Deepavali, on Naraka Chaturdashi, Muthuswami Dikshitar asked his Shishya Brindam, his students, to come and sing for him. And what song did he choose? Meenakshi me mudam dehi. And at the lines, Meenalochani, Pasha Mochani. Pasha Mochani means the one who removes Pasha. The second Pasha Mochani was sung, his head dropped in front of the altar and he lost all consciousness. Or he attained whatever consciousness he had to. That happened because of Meenakshi's kripa. We are calling her Meenakshi now, but for us she is Shyamala Devi, who is the goddess of speech. This goddess, Shyamala Devi, rules in this Kadamba Vanam. This is one beautiful version. So in that space, Vak is important. In that Kshetram, everything you say is being heard because the goddess of speech is over there. That is the respect that you have when you go to a Kshetram. So when you go to Madurai, you don't simply go, you know how much that auto fellow charged me? 40 rupees. What does he think he is? Stupid fellow. No, that is speech. You don't know, this doesn't apply just to Madurai, it applies to every Kshetram. You don't know who is who in a Kshetram. That auto fellow could well be Soma Sundareshwara. So, simply put, mind your language. Politically more correct, be mindful when you speak. So that idea is present in Madurai, that when you go to that Kshetram, be mindful of your space. This is one underlying layer of Madurai, that in Madurai, Shyamala Devi is present. Now Shyamala Devi, who is present as Vak Shakti, is there. Wherever the goddess is there, Kundalini energy is there. Kundalini energy is what rises within us. This Kshetram, where the Kadamba Vanam is a place where you can activate that Kundalini. In Sanatana Dharma, Kundalini is always compared to a snake with a rising hood. This Kshetram is one of the few Kshetrams where the Kshetram itself is said to be a Sarpam. The Sarpam is coiled in such a way that its head is in the center of the Kshetram, where the temple is today. That's where the head of the Sarpam is. And its tip, the entire body of the Sarpam is what marks the tips of the Kadamba Vanam. That is why the Kshetram, as per Puranas, is called as Halasya Kshetram. Halasya is a snake. Hala is a snake. Halasya Kshetram is the Kshetram where a snake is present. Now in this Halasya Kshetram, there is a Kadambavanam. In that Kadambavanam, we know that the goddess Shyamala is. So far Kadambavanam and Halasya Kshetram had come. The title subject only has not come. Madurai. How is this Madurai? Where this snake is and where his own Ardhangini is, will Shiva not be present? Shiva is most fond of certain kshetras. In these certain kshetras, in some places, he chooses to do certain things. In Kashi, he likes to roam around and give people mukti. That is why in Kashi, he walks around on the ghats and sees who needs Tarakanama, I will give them. In another place, he chooses to do an abhishekam to himself. How does he do an abhishekam to himself? He has 4 hands. 2 hands have the abhisheka patras, the amrita patras. So he takes this amritam and he pours it on himself. Now at some point these 2 will empty, no? So when these 2 empty, the other 2 hands at the bottom are ready to refill it. So constantly he's dripping with amritam. Amrutena plutam shantam divya bhoga samanvitam is how we describe him. Amrutena plutam, he's wet with amritam. Because he's pouring amritam, what do you think the taste of amritam might be? It's certainly not bitter. Sorry? Madhuram. It will be sweet. When he was sitting in this kshetram and drenching himself in that madhuratvam, some of that amritam fell on the ground and hence this kshetram was called as Madhura Kshetram. Madhura Kshetram became Madurai. That is the real reason that it is called Madurai. Madurai is the adaptation of that idea. This is one reason why it is called as Madhura Kshetram. Now let's go back to the goddess that we just spoke about, Shyamala Devi. Shyamala Devi, like every other goddess in our pantheon, also has a birthday. Do you know when her birthday is? Shravana Bahula Ashtami. In the month of Shravana, in the dark half of the month, in Krishna Paksham, on Ashtami night, she came. Anyone else who she shares the birthday with? Krishna. Krishna was born where? Mathura. Krishna's sister was born where? And came and settled down in Mathura. Here, there Mathurapuram, here Maduraipuram. Same idea. Moharatri, the night is called Moharatri. That is the night that they both came. In different times. But it is the same idea. Why it is Mathura? Why it is Madurai? You make that connect. You come here and you do Bala Upasana. As Kausalya aunty was saying, here it is Bala Meenakshi, there it is Bala Krishna. Only Meenakshi and Krishna changing. Tattvam is remaining the same. So this idea presents itself very, very beautifully. That you will see brother and sister choosing identical spots. Sri Ram Navami just concluded for us. Chaitra Shuddha Navami, Rama shares the birthday with Parvati, who appeared to Himavan and Maina on the same day. Just one nakshatram difference. He came on Punarvasu, she came on Ardra nakshatram. That's all the differences. They are also same. Whenever these siblings, because they are twins, they will always choose the same ideas for themselves. So that is why the goddess here is the sister of Vishnu. Already you are getting an indication of what's about to come. The sister of Vishnu has come and she has chosen this place. She has chosen a Kadambavanam. She is the goddess of all speech. Here, Shiva is present in what form? What's the name of Shiva here? Any prefix to the word Sundareshwara? Soma Sundareshwara. He is called Soma Sundareshwara in this particular kshetram. Soma is the one who has Chandra. Why did they use that? We go back to what we just described. We said he is wet with Amritam. Amrutena plutam shantam. He is wet and dripping with that Amritam. Amritam comes for us from Chandra. Chandra Kalas, the rays of Chandra Kiranas are supposed to be brimming with Amritam. That is why there is this beautiful practice in Ayurveda of taking milk and on a full moon night, letting Chandra's Kiranas fall in it, chanting something and then consuming that milk because we believe that milk imbibes the spirit of that Amritam inside it. So here, to represent the Amrita Tattvam, that this Kshetram is an Amrita Kshetram, we use the word Soma, the one who has Soma on his head. That Swarupam is called Soma Sundareshwara. Sundareshwara he gets a little later, but here he is present as Soma Shekhara. So here are some of the ideas that present themselves when we talk about Madurai before we knew it to be the emergence of what it is. Now Madurai has 2 predominant Puranas from where we take references to understand the stories. One is Halasya Mahatmyam. That is the Samskrita Purana. Then there is a specific Tamil Grantham, which many of you would know, which lists out 64 different Leelas that Shiva performed in this place specifically. This is the Tiruvilayadal. In the Tiruvilayadal, we see the beginning of the Kshetra is when Indra comes here. There's a very beautiful story of how Indra comes here to do tapas to Shiva in a Kadambavanam. The goddess is present only in the backdrop. She is not seen by anybody up till this point. So it is a Shiva Kshetram. So then at this point, Shiva appears to him as a lingam, as a Swayambhu lingam, and he says, he rids Indra of whatever dosham Indra had. And post this, there is a king who stumbles upon this entire forest, this Kadambavanam. He is not even a king at that point. He is aiming to be a king. Shiva appears to him in a dream and he says, you are in the Kadambavanam. Come a little further and have my darshanam. You will be the founder of an entire dynasty. The one who sees this is none other than Kulashekar Pandya, and he is the founder of the Pandya dynasty. Kulashekar Pandya has a son called Malayadhwaja. Malayadhwaja earns this name because he takes his dhwaja and he places it in Kailasa, in Himavat Parvatam. That's what we understand. So because he places his flag over there, this was just like what we do on the moon. They did it at that point in various mountains. So he placed this over there and he earned the title Malayadhwaja. Malayadhwaja and his wife Kanchanamala are the rulers of this dynasty now, where the Kadambavanam was. The Kadambavanam was where the temple of Madurai is today. So in this place, both of them are ruling, and Kanchanamala remembers something from her past life. Kanchanamala, whose name was Ichchamba, what a beautiful name, Ichcha, she has a desire in her previous life. In her previous life, she had one desire, Jagannatha should come to me as my child. So she does a intense tapas for this. The Tiruvilayadal also describes in what month, concluding with the month of Margadi, starting with the month of Thai, for 12 months she eats different things and lets go of certain things just so that Jagannatha can be born to her. But in between something happens. In between following this intense fasting for so long, her body withers. So when her tapas is concluding, Jagannatha comes, but she doesn't have the physical strength anymore, and she can feel that prana is about to leave her. So she asks her saying, what about my promise? You promised me that you will come. So she says, Ichchamba, you will come back in another form, and I will appear to you as your daughter. So Ichchamba leaves her body. She is reborn as Kanchanamala. Kanchanamala is the one who marries Malayadhwaja. So when all of this is happening and their kingdom is growing, they are conquering more and more spaces, she remembers that I had asked Jagannatha to come. And at the time, Malayadhwaja is also wondering, I want a son. He wanted a son. He wanted a son so that his son could take care of the kingdom. But Malayadhwaja did not realize that you don't need a son to take care of the kingdom. You need an able-bodied person. And sure enough, all of the rishis come and tell him that you do a Putrakameshti. Just like what Dasharatha did, you also do a Putrakameshti. You will have somebody to take care of the entire empire for you. So he agrees. He does this Putrakameshti Yajnam. And just like she came from Chidagnikunda Sambhuta, when Malayadhwaja and Kanchanamala are doing the homam, from the homam itself, a 3-year-old girl emerges as is, in the shade of an emerald. She does not come in any other color. She chooses a specific shade, Marakata Chaye. In that Chaya of a Marakata, this 3-year-old girl comes straight out of the Yajnakundam. This is fast forward, no paisam drinking, then waiting, nothing, straight. Directly the fruit of all the tapas. Why? Because Kanchanamala already did that tapas. And now the fruit of that tapas has come, and it's so beautiful. The descriptions in this, they vary. But as soon as she comes, she doesn't even look at Malayadhwaja. She goes straight to Kanchanamala. She sits on her left lap and she said, Amma, you remember me. As if Kanchanamala can forget from that previous life the desperate yearning. And she looks at her. She does this to her mother's chin and she says, now feed me. And she closes her eyes for the first time. When she closes her eyes for the first time, Kanchanamala has forgotten all this. This is one big rahasyam with all these devatas. If they close their eyes, gone, you've forgotten all of this. Unmesha nimishotpanna vipanna bhuvanavalihi. Lalita Sahasranamam. Can't touch Meenakshi or Meenakshi Kalyanam. You shake it, Lalita Sahasranam only will fall out of it. By the time she opens and closes her eyes, one entire yuga will go. That is how much, because all of her work she does through her eyes. Now, the goddess is Marakatangi. She is the one who is in the hue of an emerald. But they name her something. What do they name her? Come on. What's the title? Sure, no? They name her Meenakshi. Why Meenakshi? Fish-eyed. Very evidently, huge eyes. But the Lalita Sahasranamam starts to describe this moment so beautifully. And this is when we start to understand that behind the name of a Devata, on one hand, there will be a host of symbolism. And on the other hand, there is also some extreme beautiful poetry. Now here, the Lalita Sahasranamam says, Vaktra Lakshmi Parivaha Chalan Meena Bhalochana. That her eyes are like fish that are swimming. Where are they swimming? Fish have to swim. So where are they going to swim? They are going to swim in the face, which is a pond of beauty. But it uses a very beautiful, it doesn't say pond actually. Vaktra Lakshmi Parivaha. Parivaha means pravaham. It means in a face that is constantly oozing and is constantly radiating beauty. In that spring which is moving, there are two fish. Those two fish are your eyes. Parivaham, Pravaham, Lahari. What do these ideas mean? The idea of movement, they didn't use a pond. They could have used a sarovara, but they didn't say sarovara. They said in the moving river of your face, in the moving spring of your face, those two beautiful eyes are like fish. Because whenever water moves, it is fresh. Bhagavat Namam is also like this. For a Bhagavat Bhakta, when he picks up the Japamala, he will not say, yesterday also I did Ramanamam, today also I am doing Ramanamam, so boring. Every time they do that Namam, it does something. That is why Tyagaraja Swami said, Telisi Ramachintanato Namamu Seyave. You do it once, it feels new. Bhagavat Namam, Bhagavat Rupam. You tell a Bhakta about Bhagavan's Katha, if somebody sitting here is already familiar with Meenakshi Swarupam, they won't put fast forward and say, I already know this, just move ahead. They'll again want to hear. Go to Sita in the Sundarakanda. She has lived with Rama for so many years. But she asks Hanuman, tell me how does he look? And Hanuman describes, he is Ajanu Bahu, he is Kodandam Hastam, he is like this, he is like that. And she listens again and again. Because Bhagavat Rupam is fresh. It creates that sense of freshness and takes away your tiredness. You close your eyes and you think of him, you've forgotten samsara. That is a lakshanam, that is the characteristic of Bhagavat Rupam. That is the characteristic of Bhagavat Namam. That is the idea behind saying that she has a pond-like face, a spring-like face that is constantly fresh to look at. Every time you look at her, you see that tazatanam. And in that face, there are two beautiful fish eyes. This is what the Sahasranamam said. Shankaracharya took it to a whole new level. Shankaracharya has he's not fully happy with the Sahasranamam. As we go ahead, you'll see in some places. He says, Amma, looking at those big fish eyes, the fish in all the other rivers, you know what they are saying? They are saying that they don't want to close their eyes because your fish eyes never close. And your fish eyes will complain to your ears because your eyes are so big, they're close to your ears. So they will whisper into your ears and they will say, look at all those other fish and look at my eyes. So Amma, because of you, all the fish in the world are scared. Amma, what is this? That is how Shankaracharya talked to her. It is said, in fact, in Madurai itself, that when Ambal appeared to Shankara, he kept looking at her. She kept looking back. He kept looking at her more. Then he had to blink his eyes for a second. And then he said, wait, we'll do a staring competition. And then he realized, she's not blinking her eyes. Then he said, Amma, how is it that you're not blinking? She said, Shankara, if I blink, by the time I open my eyes, you will not be there. This is the idea of her eyes, that her eyes only are regulating everything. She doesn't have to hold complicated ayudhams. Through her eyes only, all the work gets done. That is why Kamakshi, Meenakshi, Vishalakshi. Meena also are said to be fish, they don't close their eyes. So the one who watches us, this Upamanam, this comparison is what they picked up. That the one who watches us without closing her eyes, she's watching constantly. What does this Jivi need? I'll take care of it. She is only Meenakshi. When you go to Kashi Kshetram, she's watching you with bigger eyes to say, 1 second, how is this Jiva? Do they need something? And that is why Vishalakshi becomes Annapurna. They're one goddess. She'll look with big eyes, but she won't keep staring like this. She'll look and she'll say, oh, this person needs this. I'll go and give them that. That is only Annapurna. That is why the Sahasranamam, Lalita Sahasranamam is also filled with all of her names talking about her eyes. When you look at us, if we say something, you tell somebody to do something and they say, we'll see, that really does not mean they'll do anything about it. If you say, we'll see, nodtini andre ashte matte. But when she says nodtini, it will actually be, she will see. That is what the Sahasranamam gives so much prominence to her eyes. Can you name some eye-related names of the goddess ending with the word Akshi? Kamalakshi? Sorry? Okay, I hear only Akshi. Jalajakshi. Okay, so these are all variations of Padmakshi, Kamalakshi, Jalajakshi. Okay, what else? Lolakshi. Vanajakshi. Vanaja also lotus. Vishalakshi. Okay. Okay. Neelayatakshi. Raktakshi. Dirghakshi. Mrigakshi. Sounding familiar, no? Hello, in Purva Janma when we did Lalitha Sasnam we read, no? Next time we read Sasnamam, just look out for the Akshinamas. How many of them they puncture periodically? Vaktra Lakshmi Parivaha Chalan Meena Bhalochana is the first name that comes talking about the eyes. But if you see the Sahasranamam also, the first name that describes the goddess, from Shri Mata, Shri Maharagni, there is no name of the goddess. These are all qualities of the goddess. Huh? She is a mother, she is ruling, she is on the Simhasanam, she emerged from the Chidagni Kundam. None of these are her names, these are her qualities. The first name, Sudha Sagara Madhyastha Kamakshi. The first name only they said, Amma, everything is there in those eyes only. So this is also Kamakshi Sahasranamam for this reason. But I'll do a namaskaram to Kamakshi now because our main subject is Meenakshi. So with this idea, they named her as Tatataka. Is one in the local tradition, she is known as Tatataka. But her name also came to be, she was known everywhere as fish-eyed. So this fish-eyed goddess started to grow. But there was one small thing that Malayadhwaja noticed. When she came out of the Yajna Kundam, she was born with 3 breasts. At this point, Malayadhwaja, who wanted a son but forgot all of that when he saw Meenakshi, and the valor with which she started to grow, he realized she's better than 10 sons put together. But on the other hand, this thought was bothering him. She has 3 breasts. This looks like an abnormality. I have not seen this before. And then the usual concern, who will marry her? So, an Asharira Vak, a non-bodily voice, speaks to Malayadhwaja at the Yajna Kundam itself, saying, when she meets her match, at that point the 3rd breast will disappear. So, there was recently a question when I gave a talk somewhere saying, we speak about Asharira Vaks, but in today's time we cannot hear that. Somebody from the audience only responded to this very beautifully, saying, in today's time we can barely hear Sharira Vak only. Why have we heard about Asharira Vak? So, once this Asharira Vak speaks, Malayadhwaja is completely reassured and the girl grows. And when she grows, the attitude that people have to a growing Meenakshi is not just Malayadhwaja and Kanchanamala. Up till now, there are poets who are inspired by a growing Meenakshi. This is what has formed an entire genre of Tamil poetry called as Pillai Tamil. In this Pillai Tamil, where you have different phases addressing different phases of the growth of a baby, the ones that talk about a baby Meenakshi, they ooze so much love that you will forget that you're talking about a goddess. You will just look as if you're talking to your own child. And you will see Pillai Tamil that is written for different devatas. They write it even for Muruga. And the way that the poets start to look at these devatas is very endearing. For example, when it comes to Muruga, when they write Pillai Tamil for baby Muruga, they want this baby to stop crying. So they tell the baby, clap your hands, and then they tell the baby, see, your father is dancing, you clap your hands when your father is dancing. The same thing they do for Meenakshi and say, only if you clap your hands, make him dance to those tunes. That's the only difference that is used in the Pillai Tamil addressed to Meenakshi. But there's one very beautiful verse which doesn't address Meenakshi but talks about Meenakshi, where Kanchanamala is trying to put her to sleep, trying to put her to bed. And when she's trying to put this baby girl to bed, she looks at her and she said, I made a mistake. I named you Meenakshi, which means you have big fish eyes which will never close. Please close those eyes and go to bed. This girl is not sleeping. She's babbling, right, as babies do. It's just making words which technically we don't think make sense. Then she looks at her and she says, you're called as Madhura Vagishwari. Vagishwari, you're the goddess of speech. We called you that. That's why you're not keeping quiet, no? But don't forget, we also called you Mukeshwari. So please become quiet and go to sleep, Amma. This is the bhavam that you look at that child with. And when Kanchanamala does this, of course, the baby sleeps and then the baby gets up the next morning and she grows. But once she becomes a teenager, life takes a different turn. Because Malayadhwaja suddenly attains Swargam. Malayadhwaja is dead. And Malayadhwaja is dead. There is a question of who is going to rule the kingdom. Without any hesitation, she said, I'm going to rule the kingdom. I'm the able-bodied child that he asked for. I will take care of the kingdom. So she ascends the throne of the Pandya Rajam. Once she gets onto the throne of the Pandya Rajas, Meenakshi gradually expands her empire. When she's expanding her empire, her singular focus is that every part of Bhuvana she will take care of. Now this is a beautiful idea because this is Jagannatha. Every part of Bhuvana she will take care of. So sure enough, Kanchanamala is encouraging her and her conquests are expanding, and at some point she thinks to herself, okay, all of earth is done. Almost. Only the 8 directions are remaining. So what I will do is, I will conquer the Ashtadikpalakas and take their lokas also and make all of that into the Pandya Rajyam. So she begins this conquest. So along with Meenakshi, let's also visit the Ashtadishas and see how her conquest goes. What is the first disha that anybody, when we talk about Ashtadishas, what is the first direction that we speak of? East. East is ruled by Indra. So she goes to Indraloka first. She goes to Swargam. As soon as she goes to Swargam, Indra doesn't even put up a fight. He says, take my Kirita mama, you be happy. Neen chanagirama. Because if you are well, we will all be well. So this was really not the fight she was expecting. Meenakshi is a warrior goddess. Okay, she was in a mood for like this. Then she says, okay. Then she turns her focus, she shifts to the right a little bit. What is the next direction after east? I will make you do a complete Pradakshinam today. I am very cognizant of this. Southeast. What is this called in Sanskritam? Agneyam. This we'll know because of Vastu. Anything else we remember or not, we'll remember this. Agneyam is ruled by which Devata? Agni Devata. She goes there. Agni Devata says, Amma, whatever fire is burning in this world, you yourself have come from fire. Not just this, Amma, whatever fire is burning in this world and whatever people are putting into that fire, they're anyway offering it to you only. So Agni Lokam is also yours only, take it, Amma. He gives it off. Then she goes south. Who is in south? Yama. Once she goes to Yamalokam, he looks at her and he said, Amma, you can take this lokam, but actually you don't have much work here. And she says, why? She says, ever since people are there in your Rajyam, nobody is coming to Yamalokam. They are all happy there also. And since you are their queen, once they go anyway, they'll go to Swargam. So actually this is full khali only, but take it anyway, it's yours. So Meenakshi gets this free occupancy lokam entirely to herself. From the south, now she goes to the, called as Nairiti. Our railways is also southwest. The southwest railways is called as Nairiti. So Nairiti is ruled by a Rakshasa called Niriti. Niriti does not put up a fight, but she tells her, conquer, conquer. You can't conquer for too long. So Meenakshi takes this, she fights, gets the lokam, and then she's like, 1 minute, let me put a pause on this. And she goes to meet Agastya Muni. Agastya Muni gives her counsel. She's very disturbed by what she has heard from Niriti. So she says, why did Niriti say this to me? Agastya smiles because Agastya has been waiting for something. Agastya tells her, all these rishis talk only in code language. So he says, you do your conquest. If you do your conquest, entire Bhulokam will be in your hand. You will have Karagrahanam. Karagrahanam is what he says. But what he means is very soon you will have Panigrahanam, which is that somebody is going to hold your hand very soon. And he is extremely happy. Why is he extremely happy? Because Agastya remembers what was promised to him. At the time of Gauri Kalyanam, the entire Bhuvanas, Shiva made one big, this Shiva again is one urgent Anjaneya, no? So he made off one big declaration in Kailasa. He said, tell everybody in this world that if they are my people, they have to come for the wedding. If they don't believe that they are my people, let them be where they are. Who in this world doesn't want to be known as Shiva's person? So everybody landed up there as at Aushadhi Prastham, which is where the wedding happened in Himalaya Parvatas. At that time, when the entire population of all living beings, not human beings alone, landed up there in Himalaya Parvatas, at that point, the weight of the earth started to tilt a little bit. So Shiva looked at Agastya and he said, can you go to the south? Can you go to Dakshina Bharatam and balance this? Agastya said, is it fair? Everybody else gets to see this Kalyanam, this Divya Vaibhavam. Everybody else gets to see it, but I have to stay away. He says, Agastya, for your sake, I will come again and I will marry Gauri in another form. At that point, you will conduct the Kalyanam, Agastya. That is my promise to you. This is what you mean when you say Bhakta Anugraha Vigraha. That he denied it to him at one point, but he said, for your sake, an entire Kalyanam will happen, Agastya. So now Agastya remembers that and he said, Amma, you do. Karagrahanam, you do. So she goes on. We are in which direction? Niriti, which is also the name of the railways of this particular, from the Bangalore railways. Then she moves to the west. Who rules Paschima Disha? Varuna rules Paschima Disha. Varuna gives her all the waters and he says, not just the lands, all the waters are also yours. So she moves from there to northwest. Northwest is Vayavyam. Vayu gives her all the air and he says, Amma, all the air is under your command. Then she moves to the north. In Uttara Disham, which is ruled by Kubera, Kubera says, all Trailokya Sampadam is anyway belonging to you. So why are you worried at all? Take it. Now, there is only one Disha left to conquer. That is northeast. She decides to take this up. She doesn't worry about in northeast I have to build a well, in northeast I have to have bedroom. She's focused on the real northeast. Amongst the Ashta Dishas, this is considered to be the most sacred Disha because Purva Disha and Uttara Disha both are Devasthanams. In Purva Disha, Surya rises and Uttara Disha, Guru sits. So where these two meet is considered to be the most auspicious space. That is why you have Devarmule in this space. So she also goes to the northeastern direction. And the northeastern direction is called as Ishanyam. Ishanyam is ruled by Ishana. Ishana is a name of? It's a very doubtful answer. So we will go through. Shiva has 5 heads, Panchamukhas. Those Panchamukhas have 5 different names. Sadyojata, Vamadeva, Aghora, Tatpurusha. These 4 are in 4 directions. Ishanamukham is the head on top. Ishanamukham is Dakshinamurti Swarupam. Dakshinamurti sits in the north, but he controls the entire northeastern region. So she marches there. When she marches there, at the base of Kailasa Parvatam, she reaches and Shivaganas are there. She defeats the Shivaganas. Shivaganas are wondering, this has never happened before. So immediately SMS is sent to Nandi. Nandi is barely coming down the mountain, she is walking up. And Nandi is wondering, nobody is familiar with Kailasa that they can come up so easily. She is smiling to herself, thinking, I am very, very familiar, more than all of you. At this point, when she meets Nandi, she defeats Nandi also. And when Nandi is fighting her, he is wondering, the strength that I have, I feel like she is only giving me that strength. This is a Rahasyam. Nandi Vidya Nateshwari, we say in the Sahasranamam. Nandi is one of the foremost gurus of the Sri Vidya Sampradayam. Nandi here is meeting his Adhishtatra Devata. He is meeting the Devata that he is worshipping. So he recognizes that the strength I'm getting is from her. I don't think I should be fighting her. But at the same time, I should alert the one that I'm supposed to. So immediately he makes a U-turn and goes straight up to Kailasa. As I have said earlier, Kailasa is not one icy, sad, snow-capped mountain in which on one small stone he'll be sitting. Kailasa has massive bhavanas. In the middle of those enclosures, there is a Parijata Vanam. In the Parijata Vanam, at the base of Kailase Kamaniya Ratna Khajite Kalpadrumule Sthitam, at the base of that tree, he is seated. That Parashiva, straight Nandi goes to him and he says, somebody is attacking Kailasa. But Shiva is also a fantastic actor. He says, who has come? As if he doesn't know. Dakshinamurti Sarvaguru Swarupam is sitting here. He does not know what is about to happen. And he says, she's attacked, is it? Then I think I have lost. Nandi looks and he says, you have lost? He says, yeah, I lost my heart to her a long time ago. Let her come. And as she strides straight in, this is the only direction left, after which she will be called Digvijaya Pratapini, the one who has attained Digvijayam, which unquestioned superiority and unquestioned monarchy over all these regions has come straight in. Look at this and contrast this with Gauri Kalyanam. In Gauri Kalyanam, how much tapas she does, how much she is waiting for him over there. Beautiful Kavi says, Nijamoda Sada Ramaniya Shivamrita Nama Japam Subhagam. The one who is delighting herself in Nijamoda Sada Ramaniya. That name is bringing her so much joy. There she is doing tapas for years and eons together for him to come. Here straight she says, open the doors of Kailasa, I have come to conquer. Because that is the authority with which she rules his heart. She is not only the one who Jagadishwari, she is Shiva Hridayeshwari also. So she comes straight to his Hridayam and he looks at her and he smiles and the third breast disappears. At this point, the Asharira Vak immediately looks down and says, Mangalam Bhavatu, may there be joyousness. One of the attendants who is with her, Meenakshi has no idea. For her, she was in a mood, she's in a very difficult place, okay? She came fully ready to conquer and she's looking at him and she's lost all interest in war. But she remembers. She knows, no, I'm supposed to conquer this place. But she has lost her heart to this guy. Now, it doesn't suit the image of this warrior princess. So she's fighting with those emotions. Meanwhile, her attendant remembers that long ago her father was foretold by the Akashavani that whenever the third breast disappears, she has met her match. So she whispers this to Meenakshi saying, you don't have to worry about losing your heart. He is the one that you are going to marry. So at this point, she looks at him, she smiles, and one version says so beautifully that when she looks at him, she says, like last time, you have to come and ask for my hand in marriage. And she smiles and goes. A version of this, it's even more beautiful. When she's walking away, she says, don't do anything extra like last time. This is a translation of the verse. Because if you remember last time, when he came to ask for Gauri Kalyanam, the problem with Shiva is he's not used to asking. He's only used to giving. So when he actually had to come, the very first time he ever had to ask for something was Gauri's hand. So when he had to ask for Gauri's hand in marriage, he didn't know how to do it. So he came as a Vidhi Nartaka, he came as a street dancer to the court of Himavan and he started dancing. When he danced, when Nataraja is dancing, how beautiful it will be. All of you know because you came for Chidambara Rahasyam, I know. But when he is dancing so beautifully, everybody in the palace fell for that dance. So Maina Devi, Himavan's mother, Parvati's mother, Himavan's wife, Parvati's mother, she watches this dance and she says, tell him I'll give him whatever he wants because his dance is so powerful. So then the guards come and tell him, what do you want? And he says, I want her daughter's hand in marriage. Does it look nice? I thought I'll give him something out of affection as a token of respect. See, means he wants my daughter's hand. And then he created a massive hangama at that point. So she remembers this and she says, please don't do any of that, just come. And he makes a promise and he says, the 8th day from today, I will arrive in Madura Kshetram. That day will be a Somvaram, that will be on this particular day. This year it is an Adivaram, but the day it is Uttara Falguni Nakshatram in Chaitra Masam Vasantaritu. On that day I will come to do Karagrahanam. She smiles, remembering Agastya's words and says, truly that Muni foretold what was about to happen. So she goes back to Madurai. Once she goes back to Madurai, the festivities over there are just a buzz for everybody. Meenakshi is not just their queen, she's the queen of their heart. So every home, every space is decked up because now Sundareshwara and Meenakshi must be brought together. At this point, he's not yet Sundareshwara. I already announced his name off earlier. But when Sundareshwara comes, when Shiva has to come, Vishnu and Brahma join him. Vishnu and Brahma join him and tell him, look at you and look at her. Tatataki is an extremely gorgeous goddess with her emerald hue. As it is, she is shining like an emerald. Look at you. You are going like this with Sarpavesham, Chita Bhasmam, with Ganas, Chitra Ganas. They all look strange. Doesn't look nice. Then they knew he's about to start explaining Tattvam. You know what my Vibhuti is? We all know. Again, like last time, don't do. Just come straight. So, he converts himself. Does he take time to go to the green room and to change his clothes? It took him 1 second. And in that 1 second, all the Chita Bhasmam turned itself into Gandhapudi. And he's covered with Kasturi. At this point, Vishnu put the Kasturi Tilakam on his forehead. All the Sarpa Bharanas became Swarna Bharanas, Shankara Bharanas they became. And he looked at his Vrishabham and he said, you also change your costume. So the Vrishabham converts itself into a massive Vimanam. And as this Vimanam is getting ready to go, all the Ganas, that some of them have 3 eyes, some of them have multiple legs, some of them have hair all over the body, all of what we consider strange, suddenly they transform into the most handsome of attendants that are ready for him. And at this point he looks and he says, looks at Vishnu specifically because they share a very beautiful bond. He looks at him and he says, am I looking nice? So he says, nice sir, you are the Lord of beauty, you will be called Sundareshwara henceforth. The word Sundareshwara, interestingly, is used in this context for Shiva, but one of the first references in Puranic literature that we have for Sundara is when Rukmini writes to Krishna. In Rukmini Sandesham, she addresses her letter to dear Bhuvana Sundara. So, Bhuvana Sundara there is Krishna. Krishna's sister anyway is Shyamala Devi. And that Shyamala Devi is Sundareshwari. So, he's telling Shiva, you have to match that if you are going to go like that. So, I am calling you Sundareshwara. It is Sundareshwara weds Sundareshwari. Not the Netflix serial. I'm talking about the actual wedding here. So, at this point, when he leaves from Kailasa, he's coming. Meanwhile, in Madurai, Kanchanamala is thrilled with the prospect of this wedding. But there is one sad thought. Malayadhwaja is not there for the wedding. The father, one of the most beautiful moments in weddings where we don't get into charcha about is this a patriarchal ritual, is it not? Because the bhavam of Kanyadanam is not about patriarchy and matriarchy. The bhavam is about a girl who has been in this home, and now the father and the mother have that unique privilege of placing her into another home because they know that she contains life. They know that wherever she is, life will thrive. So they give her with the idea that where she is, everybody else will be well. And that bhavam is a very emotional moment that both parents long for. Now in this moment, Kanchanamala is wondering, saying, Malayadhwaja is not here. Who will do Kanyadanam for this girl? When he's thinking like this, when she's thinking like this, as a tear leaves her eye, she opens her eyes and she sees Shanka Chakra Gada Padmadhari, Narayana is standing, and he says, why are you worried? I will perform the Kanyadanam. I am her brother, no, in every Swarupam. Madhura, Madurai. Hey, there he is Neela Megha Shyama, here she is Shyamala. Same thing. I am her brother. I'll perform that wedding. And that is why even if you see in the temple town of Madurai today, you have Alaga Perumal, who is not so far away from Madurai town, who is supposed to be the one that comes for the wedding. Of course, the local variations of the story tell us that he didn't make it in time. But as per Halasya Mahatmyam, he very much comes in time. He comes before everybody else to perform his sister's wedding. And in this beautiful moment, as they have come together, she is doing Gauri Puja inside. He is having the Vara Agamanam. And they meet. When they meet and they sit together at the Unjal, they have a host of rituals, but I'm going to choose some beautiful rituals of their wedding which showcase how lovely their Dampatyam is. At the time, prior to Mangalya Dharanam, a ritual that both couple undertake is the Mangal Sutram, which is now of course a piece of gold, but in olden times it would just be a small turmeric, a small clout of turmeric. That turmeric is worshipped because it is believed that Gauri, who is the Adhishtana Devata, the ruling deity, every Abharanam, in Sanatana Dharma, every Abharanam has a Devata. That Abharanam is worn so that you earn that Devata's grace. So the Mangalyam is controlled and is ruled by Gauri. Gauri is invoked in the Mangalyam. Now also you see this in weddings. If you ever get time out of the buffet lunches and the Ele Uta, if you notice what's happening on stage, prior to the Mangalya Dharana, both the couple will worship either with Sri Suktam or with something else, they will worship Gauri. When we do a normal puja and we invite and invoke a deity and you say, Avahayami, I'm inviting you, at the end of the puja you will ask that Devata to leave. But in the Mangalyam, the Devata is not asked to leave. Once Gauri is asked to sit, she is eternally asked to sit. So both the couple are doing this Mangalyam, and Shiva being Shiva smiles and says, she looks at him and she says, what? And he says, you only are Gauri. You yourself are doing puja to yourself. Huh? Little bit narcissistic, no? Meenakshi is not so quiet. She's Vagadishwari. She looks back at him and she says, why? You do Abhishekam to yourself only, no? That also you are doing. Why? I can't do this. This bhavam, that they are lost in their own joy. That is the idea. Gauri is doing Gauri puja to set a precedent for all of us to do Gauri puja, one. And secondly, to show you the infinite idea of Paratattvam. That when he is doing Abhishekam to himself, it's not that there is any dearth of people wanting to do Abhishekam to him, but he is lost in the bliss of the self, Satchidananda Swarupam. Here, that Satchidananda Swarupini only is here doing puja to herself. So when she picks up that Tirumangalyam, at that point of time, Vishnu is standing behind, and Vishnu is so moved by the scene, Vishnu and Lakshmi, who are now performing the Kanyadanam of their sister-to-be, Vishnu says, let me read the Pravara of both of you. And today I'll invite all of you to also read that Pravara along with me before we get ready for the Pani Grahanam of Soma Sundareshwara and Meenakshi. I will read it and invite you to just repeat it after me. This Pravara describes the lineage. The reason that a Pravara is read is because it describes the lineage of the Lord and the goddess. And when it is applied, you will see it even in weddings that happen till now. We read out up to 3 generations. Here, the samasya is what generations? You cannot ascribe him to any particular lineage. That is why the Pravara here is so beautiful. It's a very short Pravara, but it is so beautiful because it talks about who he really is and who she really is and how they are about to come together. Here, the Pravara says, Om Shrimat Kailasa Vasaya Omkara Swarupaya Sakala Tattvatmakaya Samaghosha Priyaya Sarvaloka Rakshakaya Sakshat Shri Soma Sundareshwaraya Varaya Om Shri Nagara Nivasinim Hrim Kara Swarupinim Sarva Mantrakshaраmayim Characharadi Sakala Loka Rakshakim Malayadvaja Pandyaraja Putrim Tatakatam Namnim Shri Meenakshim Kanyam. Once the entire Devatas are in retinue, they are all watching because Vishnu is moved. When Sthitikaraka is moved beyond words, he looks at his sister and he says, you went out to conquer the worlds, you conquered his heart and came back, but he's slightly older, some versions say. As an elder brother, he pulls her leg in that moment and whispers and he says, you lost the battle. You got conquered and came back. And at this point, Meenakshi, the description of her is so beautiful. She's standing in between. On her left side is Paramashiva. On her right side is Mahavishnu. She's an emerald. And this emerald is between two massive pillars. And that is when all the Devatas send down a Kusuma Vrishti of flowers with the idea that it is Meenakshi, this golden emerald, this golden greenish hue in between 2 mountains of splendors. One is white, one is dark. And Vishnu takes her hand and he says, are you ready for Panigrahanam? And she says, this hand already was given to him ages ago. Vishnu places that hand into Paramashiva, into Soma Sundareshwara's hands, and that is when the Devatas rejoice, saying, this is Ayamuhurta Sumuhurto Astu. If you see in weddings, they say very beautifully, Sumuhurto Savadhana, Sulagna Savadhana, Sri Lakshmi Narayana Dhyanam Savadhana. Savadhana is not beware, it is pay attention. Because in this moment when the Panigrahanam has happened, he has held that hand. And that hand which is Characharachala Lokamayi, which holds all the lokams together, which is protecting it by virtue of her hand, he is taking care of that hand, which means all of Prakriti Mandala is in her care. In this case, literally, because she has earned the title of Digvijaya Pratapini. And he takes that hand, he says, I'll take care of you. This means Moola Prakriti is being protected by Purusha. Purusha, Prakriti coming together is that is Meenakshi and Sundareshwara Kalyanam. But the Kalyanam continues so beautifully after this, because now these 2 beings are about to take a journey together. Of course, when we talk about Tattvam, they are eternally together. There's no doubt about it. But here as a Leela, when they come together, they are about to embark and to show the idea to the world of what is companionship. When we look at weddings, when we look at any kind of companionship, we understand what is a Divya Dampatyam, what is an ideal Dampatyam. So they take 7 steps, making 7 promises of how they will be towards each other. The first step that they make is, may we be each other's strength. Ishe ekapati bhava. At times when we need each other, when one of us is feeling weak, let the other stand up for us. That is Ishe ekapati bhava. This is the Saptapadi, the 7 steps that they take. The second step that they take is, may we be energetic towards each other and towards the world when we are together. Urje dvipadi bhava. At this point, they also look at each other and they say, may we live a life of prosperity of every kind, not just of wealth, but may we bring prosperity of feelings, of joy, of love towards each other. That is why the third step that they take is Rayas Poshaya Tripadi Bhava. The fourth step that they take together is, may we be parents to lovely children. Vishnu is standing behind them and he says, Tathastu. So the fourth step that they take together is Mayo Bhavaya Chatushpadi Bhava. Sure enough, they become parents to 2 of the most gem-like children that ever come. But don't worry, they also have a part in the story. The story is nowhere close to over. The fifth step that they take is Prajabhya Panchapadi Bhava. May we take care of Praja around us. Dampatya Dharmam is hidden in these Saptapadis. When 2 people come together, when they choose to live together, when they spend their journeys together, they owe a collective responsibility to the people dependent on them. Not just their own children, but they are a part of Samajam. When you are a part of Samajam, Gruhastha Dharmam is about upholding and uplifting everyone else around you, ensuring that everybody can rely on you. Here it is Jagatappitarau Vande anyway. But that idea is reinforced through their fifth step. The sixth step is, may we be together in every season, whether it is a physical season outside, whether it is a winter that dries us up inside, whether it is spring and we are feeling love, whether it is summer and we are feeling that heat of separation or anything, may we be together constantly. That is why the sixth step is Ritubhyav Shatpadi Bhava. May that sixth step see us through all the seasons. And finally, the seventh step is the most important, which has the summary of all these steps, which is, may we be each other's friends. Because if we are each other's friends, we will look at each other with care and with love, as we do in our friendships. That is why Sakhe Saptapadi Bhava. This is what Sundareshwara and Meenakshi tell each other. They take that seventh step, and at this point, now the Mangalya Dharanam happens. In the form of this vak, it came off a little earlier because they were in a hurry. But when he's tying that Mangalyam, as I have mentioned on countless occasions, it's so beautiful when you see the Mangalya Dharana Shlokam. Typically it is said, Mangalyam Tantunanena Mamajivana Hetunat. For our lives together, I am tying the sutram. Kanthe Badhnami Shubhage Twamjiva Sharadashatam. May we live together 100 years. But Parvati Parameshwara are eternal. They do not have a context of living just for 100 years. Because they are there, we are all there. So, the shlokam, when you do Devata Kalyanam, changes. It becomes Mangalyam Tantunanena Jagat Jivana Hetunat. As long as the world, for the world to live 100 years, may we be together. Jagat Jivana Hetunat Kanthe Badhnami Shubhage. I am tying this on your neck. Then what will happen? Trailokyam Mangalam Sada. The 3 worlds will always be well because we are coming together. We are Jagata Pitara, we are the mother and the father of this entire universe. When we come together, everything else will be well. And when he ties this Mangalyam, at this point, Lakshmi, who is present next to Vishnu, she takes a little bit of kumkum, she puts it onto the Tirumangalyam of Gauri, and she whispers into her ear and she says, may your Mangalyam be fruitful in every sense of the word. I will protect your Dampatyam. This is the beautiful bhavam. If on one hand Gauri was doing Gauri Puja, on the other hand Lakshmi is coming saying, you will never be separate from him. Meenakshi returns the favor and says, even if you are separated from him physically, I will hold you by your side until you go back to him. I will come along with my Lord and I will join you again. That is why when Sita is separated from Rama, Meenakshi Sundareshwara Swarupam Anjaneya comes together and joins her back to Rama, because Meenakshi lives up to the promise that she made. This is the respect and the love that they have for each other's Dampatyam. So the wedding rituals continue so beautifully from here, and at this point Shiva has to take the feet of the goddess and he puts it onto a stone. And he's supposed to put the metti, the toe ring, onto her. Now if you see the Sahasranamam, again, the Lalita Sahasranamam says Kurma Prishtha. It talks about the idea that her foot, the tip of Gauri's foot, of Ambal's foot, is like the tip of a tortoise. This is where Shankaracharya actually gave us a big Suchana, a big indication of what you can do in Bhakti Margam. In Bhakti Margam, if you don't like something, you can keep it away. So Shankaracharya looked at this and he said, Vashinya the Vagdevatas have said your foot is like the tip of a tortoise, but excuse me, how did they make such a stern comparison? Your tip of your foot is more delicate than a parijata. That is why I am also wondering, how did Shiva take such a delicate foot and put it on a stone at the time that he had to put the tourings onto you, Amma, to those most delicate feet. Those feet are delicate. No, remember, she is a conqueror. So those feet climbed up the mountains of Kailasa. So it's not delicate literally. It means those feet absorb the sentiments of bhaktas. So if you go there and you say something to her feet, those feet will absorb it. Look at Kanchi Kamakshi. Any other devata sits like this, you will not see the feet. I'm not a devata, I'm just giving an example. Any other devata sits in Padmasanam, you will not see their feet. But when Kanchi Kamakshi sits, you will see the feet, because those feet only are Varada and Abhaya Hastams. Those feet only are giving everything. They're so gentle because they're absorbing all the bhakta sentiments. Shankara says, such beautiful dainty feet. How did Shiva take it? But Shiva took it with great care and he placed it on the stone and he put the toe rings onto her and he bowed down in namaskaram. This is a very beautiful aspect. We typically only tend to look at the moments when she bows down. But here there is such an understanding between each other that it is not literally that he has to perform a namaskaram. In his heart of hearts, he is lost to her. So he bows down to that Meenakshi. And the rest of the rituals go on very, very beautifully. Now, as the rituals continue, and the wedding, the festivities are not ending. After all, it is Parvati and Parameshwara that are coming together. But when they are sitting towards the end of the rituals, the larger homam has been performed, various other rituals have been performed. At this point, Kanchanamala looks, and she looks at all the ones who have come from Shiva's side. And she thinks to herself, how many ganas came from his side. And this entire bridal party could take care of all of them. So, I know that it is Shiva who is my Aliya, I know all these things. But at the end of the day, I also managed to feed so many people. Does he recognize this? Kinchit ahankaram. Does he recognize that I fed all his people? Very, very natural. No need to victimize and to villainize Kanchanamala saying, oh, how she got such a thought. We'll also have, we'll perform one puja. Before anything else, it will go on Instagram from all angles saying, see how good my Varalakshmi Vratam looks. We're guilty of it, no? Same thing happened there. So in that one moment, she goes to Shiva, but she doesn't want to showcase it. So she goes to him very gently and she says, Parameshwara, I made so much annam for all the wedding festivities. Now, all your people have had, because there are mountains left behind of food. So if there's anybody left from your side, you can ask them to come and have. Just to say that I have made all this food. So Shiva smiles and he says, yeah, there is one person actually, I didn't call him because he eats a lot. So how much? One person? No, call him, no problem. Shiva says, you're sure, no? Attaya, you're sure? Call only one person, no? So much food is there. Adella itkondu nani en madli hedo. So he says, okay. Smarana matram, just through his thought, he thinks of one of his ganas who has a massive tummy. This gana's name is Gundodara. He calls Gundodara from Kailasa. He says, Nin bandilvalla, come. So Gundodara comes and he says, I'm feeling hungry. He says, correctly, you have come for the right purpose. Kanchanamala, he looks at his mother-in-law and he says, Ataya, you said no, that there is little food, can you feed Gundodara? She says, come, takes him. In minutes, the mountains of food are over. So then he comes back to Shiva and he says, I'm hungry. And then Shiva looks at Ataya and he says, is there anything else? He's still hungry. She says, 1 minute. She goes to the kitchen. The next 1.5 days, she's cooking constantly. Gundodara is constantly eating. Nothing is ending. So she goes to Shiva and she says, I'm sorry. I know that you thought what I was thinking, so I'm sorry. He says, okay, you are sorry. Gundodara's hunger will be appeased. But the poor guy has eaten so much, now he's going to be thirsty, watch. And just then Gundodara comes and he says, I'm thirsty. What am I supposed to do? And at this point, because his thirst is getting on and on, Shiva releases from his jata in Ganga. And when he's releasing Ganga, he tells her, come fast because my bhakta is thirsty. If she is Annapurna, he is Annanam Pataye Namaha. This is the one we are doing Namaskaram to in Rudram. So he also cares about his bhakta's hunger. And Gundodara was not a pawn in his game. Gundodara was somebody whose hunger had to be appeased. But he used Gundodara's example to tell Kanchanamala, don't get carried away. So Gundodara's hunger and thirst has to be appeased now. So he tells Ganga, come fast. And Ganga comes in a Mahapravaham. That is why in Madurai Kshetram, she stays back there as Vaigai. That is Vaigai Nadi's origin. That she came straight from his Jata Jutam immediately. And when Gundodara drank this water, he was appeased. Shiva will not leave things as they are. No. So he looked at Kanchanamala and he said, anybody else that I can call? And she says, Sakaitapa, I learnt my lesson. Also an important lesson in the context of massive weddings where we call thousands and thousands of people and it becomes about the grandeur and the show and the simplicity of it is lost. This is Somasundareshwara's lesson saying a wedding is meant to be sacred, treat it with that bhavam. It is not about how many stomachs you fill, it is about how much sincerity you have when you are feeding one stomach. That is more than enough. So with that bhavam, once these two are now seated on the swing, the wedding, for the most part, is over. But there are some interesting scenarios that still happen. The wedding happened at midday. It is happening at Madurai as we speak right now. The wedding happened at midday. Papa alla oota alla admele, by the time it finished, it was close to evening. Everybody was happy, except two people. These two people traveled for the wedding. They traveled very, very unwillingly. They traveled because they had this predicament. On one hand, they didn't want to leave the place that they were in. They are Mahashiva Bhaktas. And they have this rule every day. Every evening until Swami performs his Pradosha Natyam in the Chit Sabha, which is in Chidambaram, these two Bhaktas will not eat their food. Who are these two Bhaktas? Patanjali and Vyagrapada. Vyagrapada and Patanjali have a niyama. They will not eat every day until they have seen Swami's Pradosha Natyam. But Swami is only getting married in Madurai. So they thought we'll come from Chidambaram till Madurai, quickly attend the wedding and go back. But Shiva here is doing all this extra Leela and all this. No, so Salpa, it got extended. Now it is evening time. Now they missed the Pradosha Natyam. So they are about to go back as is. So Shiva sees them and he says, Patanjali, Vyagrapada, where are you going? They say, we're going back to Chidambaram. He says, you have to eat the wedding feast and go. We can't. We have a vow that we'll not eat until we see you dance. Yeah, but I got married today. So, we have our rule, we are going back as is, it's okay. Parvati comes, Meenakshi comes and she says, my children will go away hungry when I am present, I am Annapurneshwari, I can't send you like that. But they said, we have a vow, we can't eat until we see him dance, make him dance. The only person who can make him dance. She looked at him and she said, dance. He said, I am still in Varavesham, I am still in the clothes of my wedding. But I have to do this for the sake of my bhaktas. So in Madhura Kshetram, in Madurai, in the Rajata Sabha, because that entire place at that point is filled with silver utensils and everything, all of the prakarams that are built with silver, in that point he says, okay, this is my Sabha. So he begins a Natyam over there. And that is the Natyam you will see when Somasundareshwara, when you go to Madurai till date, when Somasundareshwara is straight ahead of you, on your right hand side you will see a massive Nataraja. That is the Rajata Sabha, one of the Pancha Sabhas of Nataraja, and that is where he danced specifically because two children of his would not go home until he danced for their sake. So he danced, and the dance in Madurai is very, very special. It's different from the other dances because many, many centuries later, when one of the Pandya Rajas came, he looked at Shiva, he looked at this Swarupam of Shiva, who is on the right hand side. In Chidambaram also, because he's on a raised platform, you have to adjust your eyes quite a bit to see him. But in Madurai you don't, he's massive, and on Pradoshakalam, on Trayodashi, which is also today, you can go close to him. So one Bhakta saw him, and he looked, one of the Pandya Rajas, he looked at him and he started crying. He said, Chit Swami, I'm feeling so horrible looking at you. This happened much later. So Parameshwara stopped his Tandavam and he said, what happened? Why are you crying? He says, look at you, constantly lifting that left leg up. Doesn't it hurt, Swami? Parameshwara was so moved by that sentiment that when you look at him, you want to take care of him. This is the bhavam behind Pallanda Pallanda. You are saying, you be well, Swami, Drishti should not fall on you. We are all asking, saying, you give me this, you give me that. Who is there to take care of him? When you want to take care of him, as a Leela, he will show something beautiful to you, saying, I recognize that sentiment. So Parameshwara does something that he doesn't do anywhere else. Here he puts his left foot down and he lifts his right foot. That is why in Madurai, it is not the Vama Padam that is lifted. It is the right foot. It is the Dakshina Padam that is lifted just for the sake of a bhakta. You will see this when you go to Madurai. And this Leela he performs just for these two. And he's sitting. Now he's sitting on the swing. And Meenakshi is reading out to him the terms and conditions of their marriage. And she says, so now you married a queen. Because the Pattabhishekam to me happened when my father died. At that time I took on Pandyarajam. So now you have married a queen. So are you going to stay back here as the king? But all of the queen's work I am going to be doing. I am going to be ruling. It is Ankita Namam. I will give you. You will be nominal head. I will give you the updates from each day. Whichever avataram she takes where she is in a mood to rule, he is very happy to let her do that. Same thing happens in Lalitopakhyanam. When she emerges from the Chidagni, at that point, Brahmadeva says, we have to do Samrajya Pattabhishekam for you because Bhandasura has Shunyaka Pattanam. He has his own capital. So, he is a king. You have to go as a Maharagni. For you to have a Maharagni, you have to be married. So, we have to get you married to somebody. She says, okay, get me married to somebody on one condition. He should be quiet until I ask him for advice. Lovely condition to provide. So, there is only one person in the Sabha who says, Tathastu. And that only is Sadashiva. Sadashiva Tattvam is about silence. It is an indication over there. Here also he says, we will stay back here eternally and you will continue to rule and I will also stay back here. After some time, she thinks, much after the wedding, she thinks to herself and she says, how long? I will stay back here as Tatataka, you will stay back here as Pandyan, as Chokkanatha. But how long will we keep ruling? Doesn't this Vamsham need to continue? Then she says, I also want a child. If she wants a child, who else will come? One of her own children only has to come, no? So she thinks, and she remembers one boy in specific out of the two, because one boy's birth, she had a lot of involvement in. She was the one who made him. Who is that? That is Ganapati. The other one, she had comparatively less involvement in. Who is that? How did Muruga emerge? From Shiva's Tejas, which got picked up by Agni and then Vayu and then went into Ganga and then went into the Sharavanam. But behind this is a beautiful story. When Shiva and Parvati were going through Kailasa once, they see Sanat Kumara. Sanat Kumara is deep in tapas. At this point, Shiva and Parvati decide to give him darshanam. This is prior to Kumara Janmam. Okay? So once he appears, Parameshwara and Parvati are standing in front of him. Sanat Kumara does a namaskaram. So, at this point Shiva says, ask me for a varam Sanat Kumara because look at the intensity of your tapas. Sanat Kumara says, I am not tempted by your varams, nor am I fearful of any curses from you. I am content in myself. He's a Brahmagnani in the true sense. And he tells Shiva, if you want something, you ask me. It's not arrogance. He's just in such a state of joy that he says, if you have something that you would like from me, you ask me. Shiva says, I have. I want you to come as my son. So he says, I'll come as your son. Pakkane, she's standing and she says, what about me? Then Sanat Kumara says, he asked for the boon, so I have to come as his son. I'll not come now in a garbham because I just said that I'll come as his son. She says, you can come as his son, but you cannot come as his son alone. So even if you will not enter my garbham, when you are about to be born, my body is the entire Himalayas. In that, my womb is a forest of reeds, a Sharavanam. In that Sharavanam, you will come there and you will take form, so you will be called as Sharavana Bhava. That Sharavanam is Parvati, the one who came from Parvati is called as Sharavana Bhava. But that is how Kumara came to be. That is how Kumara Swami's origin, or that we trace. But he still didn't come in her garbham, and she had that feeling that he didn't come from my womb, so I want him to come. And then he says, Shiva tells her, indeed he will come, and he will come with such capability, such massive power, that he will be called as Ugra Pandyan. Ugra is not angry alone. Ugra for us has that Ugram Viram. Ut Grasati iti Ugraha. The one who takes us to higher planes, who pulls us. That is why Ugram Viram Mahavishnum. That is why the entire Karavalamba Stotram is this. Lakshmi Nrusimha Mama Dehi Karavalambam. Karavalambam means pick up my hand. Somebody can only pick up and hold your hand when they are at a higher altitude than you. If you are at the same altitude, you cannot. So somebody who is in an exalted state, lift me up to that state. That only is the meaning of the word Ugra. That boy who is about to be born as Jnana Swarupa, who will uplift everybody from all of their karma pashams, he will be called as Ugra Pandyan. He will be an Amsha of Subramanyam. That boy will be born as our son. This is the promise that he makes to her. He makes it much after the wedding, but even in the spirit of the wedding, when they come together, you will see even in Madurai till date, if you go back home and you turn on the TVs, you will see the Kalyanam that happens between Meenakshi and Sundareshwara. There's a little boy that's already there. That little boy only is Soma Skandam. That Skanda over there is already present. What is this? They had kids before marriage. Huh? Because one Bhakta of Ambal, Tadepalli Raghav Narayan Shastri, very, very, very well-known Bhakta and extremely fond of Ambal. One day when he was about to sleep, Amma used to come to him. Bala Tripura Sundari used to come to him. So one day when he was about to sleep, he was giggling to himself. So she came and tapped him and she said, "Why are you giggling?" He said, "You won't like it, leave it." She says, "Tell me." He says, No, you won't like it, leave it." But she insists. So he says, "Nothing, I'm thinking, you also had a child before you got married, huh?" She says, "Excuse me?" He says, "Yeah. You did Ganapati Puja at your wedding, no? So that means Ganapati was already there, no? By the time you got married." So both these stories, whether it is the one about Ganapati or about Ugra Pandyan who is about to come, both of them talk about the idea of timelessness. That Ganapati and Subramanya emerge from Shiva and Shakti. They are different aspects of them. Those aspects of them emerge as their putras respectively. But to slowly bring that Kalyanam and that Kalyana Bhavam to a conclusion, whenever Gauri Kalyanam is read, Gauri Kalyanam ends with Kumara Sambhavam. That is how Kalidasa also intended it. Here also, in Meenakshi Kalyanam, the Kalyanam ends with this beautiful moment where these two Dampatis are talking about Ugra Pandyan that is going to come in the future. Of course, if you read the Thiruvilayadal, you see the birth of Ugra Pandyan and all of that. But because our subject is Meenakshi Kalyanam, I thought it will be beautiful to conclude with one of the most beautiful shlokams that Adi Shankara makes on the little boy and how it is when he comes. Because Soma Skandam, as you all know, is the name given to Shiva, Parvati and Skanda. Soma Skandam translates to Sa Uma Skanda, the one who is along with Uma and Skanda. That is one of the most important murtis of Shiva Radhana, that when they are together, the entire world emerges from that togetherness. Shiva and Parvati coming together itself is Kumara Sambhavam. If you read Kalidasa's epic, it's simply called Kumara Sambhavam. It doesn't have a mention of Kumara. When they come together, it is implied that Kumara is born. So Shankaracharya takes this idea and he expresses it in two beautiful shlokas, in which one says, Shiva picks up this little boy when he is born. He moves the curled hair on his forehead and he gives him a kiss on his forehead. And he says, "May you live forever. Sutangod bhavo mesi jiveti shaddha." May you live forever. Japan mantram Isha or Ishana, Shiva. Japan, he said this mantram, Japan mantram Isho muda jighrateyan. Muda jighrateyan is one of the most beautiful Samskrita padas that there cannot be a translation for. Muda jighrata, he with so much joy, with so much of parental love, he moves his hair, because Kumara has locks of hair. So he moves them away and he kisses him and he says, may you live forever. This is one shlokam. And the other one is, Ihaya hi vatseti hastan prasarya. Shankara is sitting on the same platform. We have spoken about this exact example, but in the spirit of Kumara Sambhavam, we'll mention it again. When Shiva is sitting and Gauri is on his left hand side, at that point the little boy is on Gauri's left lap because she's keeping him so close, she loves him so much. But Shiva cannot stay away from him for so long. So he extends his hands and he says, Ihaya hi vatseti hastan prasarya. He extended his hands, hastan prasarya, vayatyadara chankare maturankat. Then she looked and she said, okay, I have to. But she didn't give him totally to Shankara. She kept him in between so that she also can have him. Vayatyadara chankare maturankat samutpatyatatam shrayantam kumaram harashlishtagatram. That bhaje balamurtim, to that Bala Subramanya, who is the embodiment of Shiva and Shakti coming together, to that little Subramanya, I bow. As you see Somaskanda, you will see different forms of Shiva in Madurai. Each of them is testimony to how beautifully he expresses himself. Through all the Leelas that we saw today, we see Shiva Tattvam, we see Shakti Tattvam, we see Meenakshi Tattvam coming out over here. Each of them is a revelation in itself. In Tamil Nadu, you cannot come across iconography of a wedding without seeing Meenakshi in the center and Sundareshwara and Vishnu. That is how imprinted they are across the hearts and the minds of every being in the state, and it spreads its fragrance to other states as well. That is why, sitting thousands of kilometers away, we're so moved by that sentiment of both of them coming together, because on one hand, while Meenakshi represents that ability of the mother to conquer all the bhuvanas with her looks and to take care of all the srishti, on the other hand, she is eternally longing and eternally waiting to be one with her source, that is Paramashiva. That is the idea that is communicated in both of them coming together. It is said that where Meenakshi Kalyanam is read, where Meenakshi Kalyanam is heard, Meenakshi and Sundareshwara themselves manifest in the audience to hear and to delight and to bless. So today we have had the unique opportunity, as it is happening there, the Bhava Kalyanam is what is important. Sitting there and wondering, oh my God, I wish I was in a fan, versus sitting anywhere and thinking of them, the latter always has more weightage. So we have all had that unique privilege to be witness, to be the invitees. Everybody who is here by Swami's Sankalpam, by Ambal's Sankalpam, and to have facilitated and enabled all of this to the Sankalpam that germinated in Kausalya Auntie's heart, which months ago she said, April 20th or 21st, whichever day gets frozen as Meenakshi Kalyanam in Madurai, that same day we have to enable this. That thought, that seed germinated, and Sumanya Auntie came forward and said, I will support this program. And then all of you came in such overwhelming numbers and said, yes, there will be an audience. And all of this magic, to all the people that have contributed. I learned such beautiful verses of Tamil, of Pillai Tamil, from Sri Gayatri Venkatraghavan, from Meena Balganeshan, people who are doing wonderful things in this space. I think it's also a reminder for us.